Right lads, welcome back. Before we get on to the Mig-29, the Mig-21 base and the Mig-23 MLD have both now got R60s. As you can see here. Oh, they got R60M, sorry. So they now have all aspect missiles. Quite a nice change, but no one's really here for that. We're here for the Mig-29 9-13. I'm not too sure about the 9-13. I don't have a lot of history about the Mig-29. I do apologise. We do have the very nice intakes here. These shut when you are landing and taking off, so any debris don't go into the engines. Instead, these things open, let air in, and then when you take off, these open and these shut. Because Soviet runways were never that really tidy. American and NATO forces, they sweep their runways like every morning to make sure there's no little bits of like rocks on the runway which would damage the engines. But again, I'm getting sidetracked. The Mig-29, it is the new end fighter of the Soviet line, coming after the Mig-23 MLD. And yeah, it's a new rank 8. This is the top tier, boys. We've also got the Mig-27K and the MLD here. So this thing doesn't get any camouflage as of yet. I'm not really a big fan of this. It looks very depressing. It looks like a Soviet high-rise brutalist building. The plane, it looks nice. I wouldn't say it's one of the best looking planes though. When you look at the when you look at the SU-27, you can kind of see where the design went from this plane. Kind of got stretched into the SU-27. Basically the exact same plane design, but longer and a little bit wider. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked again. So this thing, I believe it's missing some engine power. I think it should have 3,000 kilos of... Oh, that's a wrong engine. That's an F-14 engine. Or it's an F-14 model at least. Look at the wings. Anyway, they've messed that up. So these are the Klimov RD-33s with 6,520 kilos of thrust. It's quite strong, 320 meters per second. If we compare that to the rate of climb of the F-16, it's only 305 meters per second. It's not the massive difference in the world though. I would still say that the F-16 has better performance when it comes to maneuverability and just acceleration in general. Mig-29, it's good. I wouldn't say its flight model doesn't feel finished. That's all I'm going to say yet. It feels very, very buggy, especially when you're trying to add elevator. It just doesn't really like responding. It feels very sluggish. I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. This was one of the quote-unquote super maneuverable jets. I don't think it had, no, it didn't have thrust vectoring, but it was very agile, which is why it was so dangerous with that heads-up display, which we'll get to shortly. So anyway, we do have a radar in this thing, the number 19. It's quite a weird name for a radar, but it is a radar and an IRST. It does have pulse Doppler, which we'll get into shortly as well. Our pilot does have CCIP for the cannons, rockets, and bombs, which it does make it a pretty decent ground attacker if you really want to. We do also have the 30mm GSH-30-1. Now the rate of fire of this thing, it's not as high as you might think. It only has 150 rounds of ammunition, but the ammunition is very good, and the rate of fire, it feels lower than that. But if you have this ground target belt, you can see here we do have armor-pierced high explosive shells. So if these penetrate a target, it is likely to kill it in one, if not a few hits. So with 57mm of 55mm penetration, sorry, you can target the sides and tops of NATO tanks. They usually have 30 or 40mm, so this will be able to penetrate them. Don't have any armor on the vehicle as you'd expect, but if we go into the secondary weapons, we'll cover the ground bombs first before we go on to this. This is a whole separate video, but I'll do it in one, hopefully. We can carry the S-8KOs. These are the rockets that are found typically on the M24 helicopters. You do have a CCIP for them, so they could be useful. Not really too sure. It's probably your best bet, to be honest, if not the S-24Bs, if you do really want to use it in ground forces. The S-24Bs are a little bit more reliable. Quite antiquated weapon systems to be using on a Mig-29 though. So these you get a lot of the S-8KOs, but they do have very little penetrate, they have very little post-pen damage. Whereas the S-24s, you only carry 4 of them, but you have a massive 25 kilo warhead. You can then also take some of the Fab 250s. I'm not sure the differences between these. We can then also carry a selection of dumb bombs. We have the Fab 250 M62s, the M54s, and the... I don't even know what the hell these things are. So the M54 contains 97 kilos of explosive mass using TNT, whereas the 62s use TGAF5 explosive. I'm not really sure what that is, but it basically doubles its explosive filler up to 160 kilograms. Again, could be useful. You do have a CCIP for your bomb sight, so could be quite useful. I'm not really too sure why you try and do supersonic bombing though, but can also carry 100 kilo bombs, but you not really want to be using these, as well as Fab 500s as well. Napalm as well. Again, don't use this, dead on arrival. And then we have our air-to-air rockets. Now the reason I've put this load up on, you can see here that we have the R73s. I'll pause a little second for you to read all the statistics here, but we've got 8 kilo, we've got an all aspect lock range of 4 kilometers and a rear aspect lock of 25 kilometers. I'm sure that's a bit bugged. Maybe at very high altitudes where the air is thin, you'd get an IR lock at 25 kilometers. Definitely not at War Thunder's battlefield ranges. So all of these missiles can be slaved to your heads-up display and radar, I believe. This missile also pulls 40 Gs of maximum overload, which is a hell of a lot. We then have 2 different types of R27s. We have the T, which are IR guided. They're basically just improved R7, no. They're basically improved R24, sorry. So the big missiles that you get on the NLD, these things. So these are basically a bit shorter but improved guidance types. So that was the IR version. We do also have a semi-active radar homing version. This is the R27R, which is seen here. It doesn't have a SAKO cone, it has like just a flat normal cone. This is the equivalent of a Sparrow on an F-14, but it is much, much better. So you can see here that the T has 50 kilometers of launch range. Again, that is going to be at high altitudes where the air is very thin. It's got a maximum overload of 30 Gs, 24 kilo warhead. Got the same guidance type for the R version, 30 Gs on maximum overload, as well as a range of 25 kilometers. It's also a constant wave signal, so it should be pretty immune to chaff blocking. But all that being said, let's take it into a bit of a test drive and see what this baby can do. Alright, so we're in a test drive. First thing you'll notice that we do have a pulse Doppler radar, as well as a track while scan radar. However, it is worth bearing in mind that the radar missiles will not work in the track while scan mode. Not really sure why, but we can't change the scope of the radar. It'll only go that range. But I'm going to show you the cannons first. So we're going to get this ADATS here. So while the rate of the fire of these guns is very high, as you can see, the damage is incredibly good. And if you look at the ammo count here, you can just shoot like a salvo of 5 or 6 rounds and still do a lot of damage. So the idea that we're going to run out of weapons or run out of cannon rounds very quickly, I don't think people are being that serious. So if we use our missiles here, try and get it in a high angle. You can see the fire. I don't know if that's going to track. Yeah, so these missiles are incredibly powerful. Probably overpowered, to be honest, at least compared to the F-16. I'm not really sure how the F-16 is going to compete with this. So we try that again. You have to be careful not to look at the sun here, though. So we change to the R-73s here, or the R-27Ts. Not really sure that I'll track at less close range. So we try and get a large aspect here. So we're firing that completely off bore sight. Is that going to track round? It's trying. I think it missed. Well, that unfortunately missed, but if we do it again here, we can turn our camera with our 3 key or the C key and launch. The R-73s do have thruster vectoring in their tail, so they're incredibly powerful missiles. It's mainly though if you're in a dogfight and you're pulling heavy Gs, with speed low power seeker head. You can see that you can basically get a lock. You can just fire and lock off bore sight. That's what makes this missile so powerful. I still think that the F-16 has better flight characteristics overall. The F-16 is more agile. This thing is probably a little bit faster. But you can see what I mean, that we just don't really like to, I mean, we are going Mach 1.3, but the maneuverability of the Mig-29 doesn't seem insane. Obviously, this is still a traditional plane, really. It's not like the F-16, which had fly-by-wire. But the cannon is very meaty. You will be able to get a lot of ground kills in this thing. Probably Russia's own A-10, really. I know the Mig-27 and the SU-25 gets the same gun or the same ammunition. So it should be quite good. These missiles are definitely overpowered. The R-27s are still good, but I think the IR missiles are probably better than the Rs. I'm really looking forward to the Mig-29. It will be something that I'm grinding out. The IR missiles are probably better than the radar missiles, although I guess you could use either. This is probably going to be a good in the mid to late game, though. I think the F-14 is probably still going to beat it in a head-on with its pulse Doppler missiles, but can't really complain. Anyway, boys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.